Okay, class, we're going to continue and finish the chapter on strategies of life. And I'm sure you're wondering if this image that I show you was Photoshop. No. In fact, this is something called the honey mushroom in a state park in Oregon. Very, very large fungus, very, very large mushroom. Its genus and species name are Armillaria ostoya, and it is also thought to perhaps be perhaps the oldest organism alive on planet Earth. So if you're ever to Oregon, go see if you can find the giant honey mushroom. Okay, we were talking about the Linnaeus classification system, where we start with all of life, then the domains. The domain of most of the species that we're going to be talking about are eukaryotic cells or eukarya, including us. And so in this little slide, I show you a comparison of the categorization of the common house cat and the common house person. So can you remember King Philip came over for good spumante or spaghetti? Good spaghetti. So both the cat and the humans are in the kingdom of Animalia, or animals. We both have a spinal cord, so we're in the phylum of Chordata. We're both in a class of Mammalia, and then the categorization splits a little bit. Whereas the cat is in the order Carnivora, we're in the order of primates. You've probably heard of primates. And then in terms of family, we're in the family of Hominidae. And in the genus, we're in the genus of Homo, and the particular species that we are is Homo sapiens. So this two-word classifications: Homo, the genus; sapiens, the specific species within the category of, or within the genus of Homo. So we have 5 kingdoms, and we just talked about Animalia, or animals. But we have Monera, single-celled organisms that are very simple with no cell nucleus. Then a little bit more complicated, the Protista are those organisms, mostly single-celled organisms that have a nucleus and some subcellular organelles such as perhaps chloroplast or mitochondria. These are karyotic cells. Then we have the kingdom of fungi, including that giant mushroom and also mold and yeast. Fungi generally obtain their energy by absorbing chemicals from their environment. And then we have plants. Multicellular organisms obtain energy from the sun via photosynthesis as their primary characteristic, can grow to be very, very tall, of course. And then animalia, or animals, including us, multicellular organisms that eat other organisms. And an important characteristic of animals is that we tend to be motile, distinguishing us from some of the other categories. We can move around. Now, let's focus on the latter 2 categories, plants and animals, because they're the ones that we see most often. They're on our scale. Plants and animals are multicellular life forms. Now, to be multicellular, there are certain challenges that have to be overcome. One is, if you think about it, we have to be able to circulate nutrients and exchange gases from all the cells in our bodies, including our adipose tissue, our muscles, our liver, our brains. So we have to have a circulatory system. Okay, we also have to be able to eliminate waste from all the cells in the body, not only to deliver nutrients and fuel sources, but also to eliminate those waste. So those are challenges for multicellular organisms, whereas a single-cell organism can just expel waste and absorb nutrients just through its cell membrane. Multicellular organisms have to also be able to communicate or send signals between the various parts of the body. And this generally involves a nervous system and also a hormonal system. We don't think about it as often, but we have hormones, which are biochemical signals that travel mostly through our bloodstream from one organ to another as a way of communication. Another challenge for multicellular life forms is how to reproduce. And we will see that here we generally have sexual reproduction, which involves a mixing of genetic information between the parents. And this can involve production of seeds or eggs. The production of eggs is known as oviparity, or live birth, which is what we're familiar with in humans, which is also known as viviparity. Another challenge, which I failed to put in this slide, is that we have to have ways to overcome gravity. That is, for us to grow beyond being just a small single cellular organism into a tall tree or a tall human or a tall giraffe, we have to have a way of overcoming gravity. Now, for trees, this, of course, involves the woody stem parts of plants, the hard material, the stiff material that makes up the tree to enable it to grow tall. And for other animals, this can involve either having an exoskeleton, such as in insects, or a skeleton, which we have, that is internal structure of bones and muscles that enables us to grow tall and resist the force of gravity, which would just pull us down to be a one layer blob if we did not have bones and a muscle system. Now let's look a little bit at plants. Plants are eukaryotic cells. They're multicellular, and they tend to be autotrophic. That is, they obtain their own energy from sunlight, by and large. They don't have to move around, so they're generally not motile. They have a vascular system for the flow of water and nutrients from the roots up through the stem, through their leaves. Now, the existence of this stem and the hard material that make up the woody parts of plants is one way that they became adapted to land, so they could grow tall and resist the force of gravity. Or otherwise, some of the earliest plants had to live in water. They go lily pads. Sexual reproduction. Actually, plants, we may not think of this, but they have a sex life. They have a stamen and ovaries. The stamen is the male component that produces pollen, which is essentially the sperm, and an ovary part, which produces the egg. So in a flowering plant, the way this would work is that pollen produced by the stamen would find its way to the ovaries, either aided by wind or by insects. And of course, sometimes this will be between individual plants and sometimes within a plant, that the pollen will fertilize the egg in the ovary, producing an embryo. That embryo becomes a seed, which is coated generally by some type of fruit, and that fruit would be the nourishment for the seed for whenever the fruit drops to the ground, and hopefully it gives the seed a little extra nutrition so that it may germinate. And I show to the right an example of a lime plant, and you can see the flower of the lime and how it develops into the fruit of the lime. Now, animals are also eukaryotic. We are multicellular, heterotrophic, meaning that we obtain our energy by consuming other life forms, other sources of fuel molecules. Animals are mostly motile. Now, not all. Some are like sponges, which don't move around, but most animals move around, and we tend to have bilateral symmetry. Just kind of look at each other. We got left and right. Now, animals can be either invertebrates or vertebrates. Invertebrates tend to be those that are soft-bodied, like sponges and worms and jellyfish and coral, or those that have exoskeletons, such as the arthropods, including, that is, insects, including beetles and ants and spiders, but also arthropods includes shrimp and lobsters. So all of these have exoskeleton, giving them protection and also enabling them to resist the force of gravity, that is, to have a little bit of structure to themselves. Or we have vertebrates, and vertebrates include mostly what we think about when we think about animals. Fish have bones, of course, and then amphibians, which are those animal forms that live both in water and also on land, such as frogs. Reptiles, which are adapted mostly to dry land but can live in water, such as lizards and turtles and snakes, and they tend to have scales to protect their bodies from the environment. And then we have birds, which of course fly. That's how they move around. And what's of course noteworthy about birds, not only that they have wings, but they're covered by feathers. And then finally, mammals, that is us and other animals that we may have as pets or farm animals or animals in the wild, which have hair or fur. Now, mammals also nurse their young, so that's the origin of the word mammals, from mammary glands. I show you some photos of one of the smallest animals, a frog, and then, of course, one of the largest animals, the blue whale, showing that the blue whale is quite a bit larger than either a human or an elephant. Now, let's go back and review again the classification of humans. The word Homo sapiens means wise man. And if we go back to our Linnaean classification, we are in the domain of Eukarya or eukaryotes. In the kingdom of Animalia, the phylum is Chordata. That is, Chordata means we have a spinal cord, which of course is encased in a backbone. That is, we're also vertebrates. And then the class is Mammalia, meaning we have, our bodies are covered with hair, our fur, ours, of course, hair, and that we nurse our young. Then the order is primates. Now, primates means that we have grasping fingers and toes. And we have a relatively large brain. We have fingernails instead of claws, and our eyes face front. Then we have the family of Hominid, which means that we walk upright, and genus of Homo, which is of course, a subcategory of the hominids, which is based on our face and jaws and the shape of our teeth and the size of our brain. And then the species, the subcategory of Homo called species, and that is Homo sapiens, the wise man. And we, again, as I said, are the only existing species within the genus of Homo. There have been other species within the genus of Homo, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, or Neanderthal man, but we're the only remaining species within the genus of Homo. Now, I thought I'd show you some strange-looking animals, just for kind of fun. The blobfish, the red-lipped batfish, the blue glaucus, something called a tardigrade, which is not as large as it appears here. It's a very microscopic animal. The pangolin, coated with all its scales, and the axolotl, which is, of course, a very strange-looking organism. A proboscis monkey. Proboscis is a large nose. The gerenuk, which this kind of looks strange to me. The pink fairy armadillo. The cedar beetle. The naked mole rat, and I thought I'd put this narwhal because my grandkids have me playing this game. Let's see, what is it? Taco, pizza, cheese, goat, something like that. Some kind of card game. You're probably familiar with it. And one of the things you have to do in the middle is recognize a narwhal, which I hadn't really been able to recognize before that. Okay, we'll stop now. This is the end of the chapter on strategies of life, and we'll give a little quiz, and then we'll continue on to the next chapter, which is on the living cell. All right, see you in a little while.